Good morning, Will.
Good morning, Brother Rich. You're looking rather professorial this morning.
Trying to class it up here, pal.
I'm telling you, dude, you're getting that done anyway. I mean, even when you go full Fetterman with a hoodie, you're classing this joint up.
Yeah. What does Dr. Fuller call this? The tactical turtleneck?
Yeah. Well,
Bringing it back, pal.
that's it, man. You're bringing it all back. So
Well, if you're interested in bringing it back and getting your tactical turtleneck on, check out the American Warrior
yeah,
Society.com.
yeah. Mine's got drywall dust all over it though from all this remodeling I'm doing down here. But all the cool kids have one. And what does this get you, brother? What's this get
I'm
you?
glad you asked, Mr. Will. What that's going to get you is going to get you access to the training vault. We have two websites. One, the American Warrior Society.com, absolutely free to anybody that wants to check it out. Got hundreds of articles written by, I think you've written an article. I've written articles.
Mhm.
Seeklander's written articles. CIA guys have written them. EP guy, I mean, FBI agent, you name it, brother. We've got hundreds of articles to keep you safe. However, if you want to take it to the next level and get involved in one of our training programs, for that, you're going to have to join the American Warrior Society. But don't worry, you can take a free test drive, 14 days on Mr. Mike Seeklander and I. All you got to do is click the link in today's show notes and take 14 days for free. You're going to learn everything from white belt to blue belt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu by Christian Dare, who's a Jean-Jacques Machado black belt. He teaches at Clinch MMA. We've also got Dr. Dan Olesnicki keeping you safe with SWAT medicine, all that good tactical medicine. We got Mr. Mike Janich, the king and the guru of edge weapons, teaching you edge weapons. We've got less lethal rifle, handgun, shotgun, vehicle defensive tactics. We got Jason Kelly from American Top Team teaching some wrestling and unarmed combatives inside the vault. We've got everything to keep you and your family safer. Please click the links in today's show notes. And who do we have on this morning so far, sir?
Before we do that, I'd like to point out one thing. That 14-day free trial does not require a credit card, which I think speaks volumes about how much you and Mike believe in the product, that you're not trying to do that, oh, let's hope they forget and we just keep getting our money every month for 6 months. That speaks volumes. You see a lot of those, right? You see, 30 days free, and then by then you've forgotten that it's going to ding you for $15. And so I think that speaks a lot to the integrity and how much you guys believe in what you're putting out there.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, brother. We've got Ted Leonard on 1461, a sunny, colder Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Our good friend Will Parker, coin number 800 in pouring rain, SoCal. Be careful over there in Southern California, brother. Alan Kelly is on 1572. Of course, he's in occupied Virginia. God bless you, sir. John Shriver's on Yukon, Oklahoma, coin number 1919. Sarah May, she says, good morning, guys. It's still cold here on the shores of Lake Superior, as I would imagine it is.
It's pretty much year round. It's chilly up there. She's up north, as we say around here.
Yeah. We got Tony on. I believe he is in Georgia. Good morning, Tony. Please like and hit that share button. Will is back in the driver's seat this morning. Once again, I will be your cymbal banging monkey for Will's thoughtful economic analysis. Before I go any further, if you want to increase your testosterone level by at least 27 points, please check out On Violence and Varietals, guys. It is my memoir. It is filled with all the crazy shenanigans your old pal Rich Brown used to get into back in the day. If you want to take a trip around the world with me 3 different times, go to combat with me, ride along with me in my patrol car, operate with me and Mike Seeklander when we were bouncers, please click the links in today's show notes and get a copy of On Violence and Varietals.
That book is living proof that you cannot be old and wise if you're not once young and stupid.
And I definitely was. There's a rumor going around that you were too, Will.
Oh, that's more than a rumor. That would be a fact. That has been fact checked 3 ways from Sunday and found to be true.
I've heard that. That's just a rumor.
Yes.
Well, glad to have you back, Will. I know that you were sick,
weeks,
man.
Yeah.
Dr. Fuller jumped in the driver's seat and helped us out, but we're very excited to have you back, brother.
Well, thank you. It's great to be back. All right, let's see what we got here. So I think the last show I was supposed to do was back on the 5th, and then I got sick. So anyway, I'm back at it now. So just for reference, back on that February 5th, the Fear Greed Index was sitting at 67. The market had been down a little bit. Now we're sitting at 77. We're back into extreme greed, according to CNN. And I would agree with that. We watch this bounce around. The market goes up, goes down. Really what's driving the market right now is bond yields. What's happening? It's really, so if you look back over the stock market over time, I'm talking long periods of time, decades and decades, you can expect about 8% a year return from the stock market. Well, right now with this volatility in the market and what's going on with Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, the Houthis, all this stuff, you can go park your money in the US Treasury and make 5%. So I can get 60-ish% of the return of the average return on the stock market with zero risk.
I like the sound of that.
So that's what a lot of people are doing, especially people who are in or nearing retirement. So this affects the flow of funds within the market. So when bond yields go up, people pull their money out of the stock market, put it in, even if it's just a 3-month treasury, making about 5.3 right now, annualized. So this is what happened from October until really this last week. The bond yields went down. I'm sorry, I apologize. They went up starting in October, late October, early November. So when those bond yields went down, I apologize. They went down. So people pulled their money out of the treasuries, either sold the treasuries or as they matured, they took them out, put in the stock market. That drove the stock market up. That begets more selling of treasury bonds and into the stock market. So it's just this flow of funds going back and forth right now. There's new money coming into the market, of course, as well. But then the bond yields determine where that goes as well. That's a big, big driver in the market right now. Because if we look back, it's really been since 2011, 2010, that a person could make any money in bonds. When they drove the rates to zero after the great financial crisis, the housing crisis, why would anybody sit in there and make half a percentage point? It's stupid. That was when the term TINA was invented. There is no alternative. You have to be in stocks if you want to make money. And that's what drove a lot of the stock market growth for over a decade. So bigger stuff happening behind the scenes.
I'm sure there is. I want to get to Jeff's comment. Jeff says, good morning. There are also several watching live on YouTube. If you want to give your smartphone a break, go ahead and turn your smart TV on, go to YouTube, and you can watch this content live on YouTube.
And have bigger renditions of us. So there's that.
You're welcome, America. I'm going to say it right now.
Yeah.
Dr. Fuller is on. My good friend, Mr. Michael Gentili is on. Good morning, folks. Please like and share. If you enjoy this content, please subscribe to the channel and all that other stuff. I won't belabor that.
All right. This one, the Buffett indicator. So he came up with this way back in the day, and it is the Wilshire 5000, which is basically the entire stock market. The GDP divided by the Wilshire 5000, and it gives a ratio. And you can tell in a very big picture way is the market overvalued, undervalued. And right now we're sitting at somewhere between overvalued and strongly overvalued. So we're sitting right in the middle of those two things. So in other words, if we look back on that chart over time, every time it gets into that above overvalued, you're looking at a pullback.
That's what I'm going to say. Or is that the same thing as a correction?
Yeah, it is. A correction, technically speaking, is a 10% reduction in whether it be a stock or an index. A crash is greater than 20%. So, yeah. And if we look at the Russell 2000, which is basically your small cap, your smaller companies in the stock market, it still bounces right in and out of crash territory right now compared to its all-time high. So at the current level. So this is
comforting.
Yeah, it is. I'm just a little ray of sunshine over here. So, we're definitely overvalued right now. And you look around the economy, and we're going to look at the jobs report today, which is a rabbit hole that Alan Kelly sent me down. Thank you, sir. Learned some stuff about the jobs report and just how much they're manipulating that. And a lot of this has to do with all the money that's been printed. It has to go somewhere. It's going to seek a return. And
always
it's finding it right now in the stock market and the bond market. So it's a different dynamic. So let's dig into that jobs report from CNN Business. Another shockingly good jobs report shows America's economy is booming. Maybe, and this goes back to some of the disconnect between economists and real people. And when I say economists, I really should say economists, politicians, academics. They go, well, inflation's back to 3%. Everybody should be happy. It's 3.3. That's better than the 9% it was. Everybody should be happy. Well, that's great if your pay is kept up with it, but prices are still a lot higher than they were in 2020, right?
I was going to say, a lot of my son he'll be 22 in May. Most of his friends here in Cumberland County are making like $13 an hour. So woohoo! Everybody's got a job, but
yeah,
that's they're living on their mom and dad's couch at $13 an hour.
And we're going to dig into that a little bit today too. So I think this is part of the strife we see in America. So those kids, I'll say, like your son's friends and like my kids' friends, are experiencing that, and they're like, how do you get this? It's great. What are you talking about? Well, for someone who isn't affected by that on a day-by-day basis, everything can be great. And especially it's great for, the investor class, the people who have the excess money to put into those treasury bonds making 5%. Sit back with zero risk, make 5%. Oh, everything's fine. Well, but that's part of that disconnect we see going on. So let's dig into this a little more. Let's keep in mind jobs numbers, where you're talking unemployment rate or jobs gained, is a lagging indicator. By that, it means you get the number after everything's happened, right? Here's the problem. The Fed uses this, and unemployment is the most lagging indicator. The Fed uses the most lagging indicator to make policy for the future.
Okay, can I throw one thing out there? If one American is working 2 or 3 jobs, which a lot of Americans are, isn't that going to drive the unemployment number down? It
won't drive the unemployment number down, but we're going to hit that here in a couple slides.
Okay, thank God.
Look at yep. You're right on track with what's happening here.
Will Parker says liars. Of course, our good friend Elkie Monroe is on from Colorado. He's coin number 1307. He says, "Look at Sharp, Ralph. Well, thank you so much, sir. You're obviously a fine specimen yourself." Dr. T.C. Fuller is on. Says, "Good thing nobody is running for national office this year. Otherwise, they might be tempted to monkey with the numbers to cast himself in a more positive light." Say it isn't so.
No, it would never happen. Dr. Fuller is just like, you're too negative, sir. Really, nobody would ever do that.
No, come on now.
No, yeah.
What does Michael Gentili say?
He says, "Is this the tallest dwarf phenomenon? The European economy was wrecked by energy costs and social programs supporting the immigration policies of the teens." Oh, we're gonna find that angle, sir. You guys are getting good.
Tell you what, Michael is an economist, believe it or not. Sarah is on. She says, "Stop it! I just spit out my coffee."
Well, see, we're stimulating the economy there, Sarah, because you spit the coffee all over the computer keyboard. You have to go buy a computer. That boosts the jobs number, boosts the GDP, boosts imports. It's just one of the many services we provide.
It's almost like we're working for J-Dog.
It is. I mean, I get a little cut off that. I'll send a little bit to you. Okay. What's Will Parker say there?
The numbers at the training facility I'm at had only 1/3 of the attendees they had 2 years ago when I was here on the same weekend.
Yep. People are squeezed. People are squeezed. And when I say people, I mean regular people who work. Academics and those, I mean, they get their cost of living increase, and they can go to their boss, and they can quit and go somewhere else, right?
Yes, they can.
Us regular folk can't do that. Okay. So it turns out this jobs report is much like the GDP report we talked about the last time I was on the show, brother, where they're playing some games of the GDP report. Well, they kept their games going here on the jobs report. So let's dig into it here on the next one.
Okay.
All right, so this is from the top part here is a screenshot from the jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Just so you guys know where I got it from, because I forgot to put the attribution on there. In January, meaning last month, average hourly earnings for all employees on private non-farm payrolls rose by 19 cents. You think, okay, that's awesome, right? 0.6% to $34.55 an hour. Over the past 12 months, average hourly earnings increased by 4.5%. And you think, okay, well, their claim for inflation is 3.3%. So people,
sorry.
Oh wow, you didn't catch that cold I had, did you?
I don't know what's wrong.
Boy, it sounded kind of bad there. You don't have the plague running around there on the Cumberland Plateau, do you?
Let's hope not.
Yeah. So there, but if they're pay went up 4.5%. Well, inflation is 3 something, if you want to believe that number. So everything's all fine and good. Well, as usual, when you dig into it, it gets a little more complicated than that. So it's not just people who work by the hour it's not just people who work by the hour who are figured into this hourly wage number. They also take people who are salaried and divide it by the number of hours worked. So let's just say I kept the math easy on myself here because I went to public school. An employee salaried at $400 a week who works 40 hours, $10 an hour, right? Easy math.
Easy math.
But if that same employee keeps their $400 a week salary and gets their hours cut to 36 hours a week, they magically got a raise, an 11% raise.
Is that Bidenomics I keep hearing about? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Okay,
So if you think about it, when they get down to 10 hours a week, they're going to be making massive hourly wages.
They're going to be crushing it.
This goes into it. Now, it's not everything, of course, but this plays into it on the margins. And the margins is where the movement happens, because let's just say they actually calculated this in an honest way. Let's just say it went from 4.5%, and I'm making this number up. Let's say it went down to 3%. Well, that marginal amount is what the media reports on, and when people go, well, hey, if that's what's happening, then my boss must just suck. It's just me, right? That influences public opinion. Now, here's the other part. The report doesn't break this out, but when hourly earnings increase, it brings out another thread, and that's the wage price spiral. You familiar with that one, brother?
I think you've mentioned it before on the show, but as to what it is, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, so wage price spiral, this is inflationary stuff. So let's say you and I are running a business and our employees come to us and say, boss, need a raise. And we go, fine, no problem. Give you a 10% raise. Well, that gives them more money to go spend in the economy, right? Well, that drives up inflation even more. Well, and then because more people are spending, we're able to raise our prices even more too, right? And then our employees come back to us and go, need another raise. Prices are still going up. And we go, yeah, you're right. Give them another raise. And that's the wage price spiral. It's a
circular reference. I mean,
bingo.
Yeah.
And this is also how deflation happens, right? But the wage price spiral, that keeps J-Dog up at night, because once that takes off, the only way to stop it is to absolutely crush the economy. So he is very much watching things like this 4.5% increase in hourly earnings. That is a big number they watch, because that can lead to the wage price spiral. And once they lose control of that, they've lost control. Think 1970s.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
not a good time.
Here's the thing. I don't think he's going to lose control of it. Right now, the stock market is priced in way too many rate cuts for this year. And we got an election coming up, as Dr. Fuller mentioned. They've ruled out the March rate cut at this point, hinted strongly that May isn't going to happen. Well, then you've got a couple meetings, but then there's a September meeting, which is the last one before the election. You can bet nothing's going to happen there. Otherwise, they're going to be seen as trying to influence the election. And even though they play around with stuff, they have to keep up appearances. They're not going to do that. So they're trapped by the calendar as well.
With all the gaslighting that's going on, I don't think they're going to have a problem. Just being anyway. Will Rhodes is on. He says, "Good morning, Rich and Will from Missouri, coin number 2269." Sarah says, "That's sad and alarming. We need to step up our training now more than ever." She ain't wrong.
Yeah.
What's Will Parker say?
Change the language, control the narrative. Absolutely. It's the old whoever controls the language controls the narrative, for sure.
Look who's on, Will.
Gold member.
Yeah, old member in the house. We got Kyle is on from the Philippines. Says, "Good morning, my friends." Mark is on from Australia. Says, "Good morning, gentlemen." Good morning, Mark.
Welcome, sir.
Man, we got a really international group here this morning. I love it.
And you got the tactical turtleneck on, classing the place up. I mean, this is.
I do what I can. What is that?
Way, brother.
What is Michael saying?
Says this level of was it? What's the big word there? Is it supposed to be education, guys?
Erudition. What is your bachelor's in? Will,
Aviation management, which I've never used, to be honest.
say no more.
You want me managing anything? Really? Think that through. Okay.
Michael Chitilli says this level of erudition is impressive. I can't add anything for Will. Rich, may I send you suede elbow patches for your blazer and a pipe? You may, sir. You
Look
absolutely
at
may.
you go.
Goss says all hell gold member. And Craig
what is it from Spaceballs? Dr. Fuller and I were talking about this. Hail Scrooge. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's been a minute, but yeah.
Yep.
Oh, look, another folks our international
awesome.
here. Craig is on from the motherland. Yes, he is out there in the UK.
Yes. Thank you for joining us, ungrateful rebels. All right. So we beat this up. So they're playing numbers with the hourly wage increase. And in fairness, that isn't just this administration. This is how the number's been calculated. It's misleading, but it is consistent. I'll give them that. It's I don't want to be fair on both sides here. Okay. All right. And it happens the other way too. If that salary person goes from 40 to 44 hours a week, that drives down their hourly wage. Mm-hmm. So it also tells you that there isn't as much work for them to do if they're only working, say, 36 hours in that example. So that's something to keep an eye on too, because employers aren't necessarily laying people off. It's happening, but they're not doing it like they did in times past. So there's a little witch's brew in there with labor hoarding as well.
Can I add one more thing onto this?
Please do.
The other thing, and you see it at all levels, like we got to keep everybody under that 30-hour cap or whatever it is, because then we got to give them health care.
Right.
So that's what's driving people to have these second jobs, because one is going to keep them at 28 hours or under, so they don't have to give them health care. The other job is going to do the same thing. And again, we need to do a show on cognitive bubbles, because this is just going to accelerate the problem, but we'll talk about that on another show.
All right. Sounds good. This one's from Bloomberg. You want to read this one off for us, brother?
Absolutely. The report clearly shows that demand and wage pressures are far from cooling. That is consequential for the Federal Reserve, which has been signaling that the strength in the labor market shows inflationary pressures are still in the system, and that's something policymakers will keep in mind before pivoting to rate cuts. Wage growth, in particular, points to additional fuel for consumers. What is all that word salad, Will?
Okay, so if you can bring that back up, because my memory isn't what it was a few minutes ago there, brother. Thank you. So demand and wage pressures. So wage pressures would be those hourly wages going up. Mm-hmm. And they're still seeing demand out there. Now, there's an interesting tidbit here and I just read about this, and so I'm still wrapping my head around what happened. So remember when inflation was transitory? Remember that?
Yeah, we heard that for months, and turns out it was not transitory.
Exactly. But someone pointed out in an article I read that if you listen to the earnings reports from publicly held companies, they were telling us that inflation was not transitory, because they're saying we've got pricing power, because companies see what's coming before it makes it into any of these reports, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, what companies are telling us is that they're losing pricing power and business is down, and they're starting to cut jobs. So this is the part of the Federal Reserve using lagging indicators. If you listen to the company's earnings reports, which if you're having insomnia, this is a great way to fall asleep, is you listen to these, but you listen to what they say. They pretty much ignore the actual earnings report. They cook those books just as much as the government cooks their books. Listen to what they say. It's the comments in the earnings call that are valuable, because you'll hear them say things like, "Oh, we still have pricing power." Well, that's a way of saying pricing isn't going down, because they still have the power to raise or maintain prices. Such as the inflation is not coming down, right? What you're hearing now on these earnings reports is, "Oh, things are slowing. It's pivoting to a slower environment." You're hearing words like that. So this tells us inflation is going to come down. They're going to win the battle on inflation. Well, unfortunately, if it continues on that path, then the next one we hear is the big D word, which is deflation. Now,
it's pretty damn scary.
It is.
It sounds good superficially, but
yeah, and it is good.
Country just like inflation.
Yep, and it is good in pockets. Like technology, we see a lot of deflation in technology. These computers we're sitting on right now are way less than they were 20 years ago, right? That's deflation. But it's within certain areas. It's not an overall. number. When it goes into overall, the whole economy is in deflation, then you get your Great Depression.
Yeah.
The bright side of that is Powell has talked about very openly. I'm paraphrasing this part. He said deflation doesn't scare him. They know how to fix that.
Exactly.
They just print a whole bunch of money and throw it in the system.
Yeah.
And we had deflation a little bit after the GFC. We had, I believe it was 2 quarters of deflation.
Mm-hmm.
They fixed that.
It's easy to fix. Yeah. That is, now that we've pulled ourselves off the gold standard, we can do whatever. We can fix that all day long. If I may, let's welcome Don onto the show. Don says, good morning from Northwest Montana, coin number 2270. Sorry I'm late. We're just happy you're here. Will Parker reminds us that it was transitory, from bad to worse.
Mm-hmm.
Guile says, I'm fortunate I have a job and a second income, but it still isn't enough. And that's the Philippines. And that's another thing, man. This is what happens in the American economy has this trickle effect around the world, does it not?
It does. And that's one where, honestly, because we are the reserve currency of the world, we owe the whole world a big old apology.
Yeah.
Because we didn't, our people, you can blame the politicians and the Federal Reserve, but it's all driven by what the people want, right? Mm-hmm. When they shut everything down for COVID, right, wrong, or indifferent to have done that, if the people would have been like, no, stop printing that money, they would not have set off this chain of events. But we didn't do that. Everybody was up there screaming more and more and more, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we get, and it's not done yet.
People like them stimmy checks. It's weird.
They do. Yep. And what's Sarah May say there?
Sarah says because printing money fixes everything.
It does until the next election cycle.
Mm-hmm. Right. She says insert sarcasm, of course.
Yes. So this one is a chart I pulled down off. This is United States average weekly hours. So we talked about the average wage. Now we're going to talk about the weekly hours. And this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So not pulling this off, so rightwing.com or what have you. And we can see that since the peak in call it the end of 2020, right there,
right,
that's trended nowhere but down. And look at the drop as we were in, say, the fourth quarter of 23 into the beginning of 24 here. So we're down to 34.1 hours for the average weekly hours.
Yeah.
So and that's going to drive your hourly wage up, right?
Once again, man, I see this in real time, and you can too if you just talk to people and listen. Mm-hmm. My son-in-law is like, there for a while, he was getting 45, 50 hours a week, crushing it. And now they're pulling everybody down, especially management. They get paid more. And now I think he's under 40 hours a week. So I'm seeing this in real time, man.
Yep. And your management thing, we're going to get to that. We're going to do a headline dump because I had, I think, 83 different tabs open for, stuff I was keeping for shows. We're going to do a headline dump here later on in the show. And we're going to touch on that management side versus the blue collar side, because it's a whole different thing than the 70s this time around.
Okay.
So what we want to take a look at here is as these hours go down, eventually employers are going to give up and let people go. The labor hoarding is not going to last forever. It is eventually going to get let go. And when that gets let go, I think we're going to see a rapid change in the unemployment rate. That's going to scare a lot of politicians. When those politicians get scared, the only thing they know to do, spend more money. That's their answer to everything. That's going to turn around and affect your inflation numbers, your GDP numbers, your national debt, which of course is, the hockey stick of all hockey sticks, which we got some interesting charts coming up on that as well. Mm-hmm. If you think you're sick about the national debt, just wait a minute. I got some real sunshine for you.
Well, read Dr. Fuller's comment, if you would, sir.
It says, it's worth remembering that when the economy does poorly, criminality increases. It's important we see what's coming. Yes, a very good point, Dr. Fuller. That's why he's a doctor and I'm just a dumb throttle jockey.
That's right. And to his
you didn't have to agree with that quite so quick. You could have argued a little bit. I mean, that would have been nice.
I mean, what you do is important, Will.
Really, if you ask my kids, I'm just stupid. I mean, it's,
but to his point, and I think this is why two self-defense guys like you and I ventured into this stuff 3.5, 4 years ago
Mhm.
because of Dr. Fuller's point. And
Yes.
it leads into what Sarah May is saying. Sarah says, I've seen a big uptick in traffic. It's horrifying. And
Mhm.
we're going to have, I didn't tell you this in advance, but I'm going to have 2 new segments for our show.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
we'll get to those later, but I
Okay.
think people
Yeah.
will enjoy it because it's going to show where this economy stuff leads. Thank you
All
to
right.
the
Yeah.
19 folks watching us live. Please like and hit that share button.
All right. So, um, as the average weekly hours come down, and you can see they're coming down from a quite high, right? 35 down to 34, and you go, well, it's an hour, right?
Mhm.
Well, you multiply that times however many workers, right? And you've got some people who are, 20 hours a week, right? This stuff on the margins is what matters. A half an hour, multiplied however many employees in the world, it's a big difference. Okay, and then once that tumbles into layoffs, wage cuts, you don't want to get let go. Yeah, we're going to need 15% pay cut then.
Yeah.
Just making up some numbers. Those things are going to start to happen. Okay. All right. So we see the trend there in average weekly hours since for a couple of years here.
Yeah.
Now, this one is also very important. This is also from the Bureau of Labor Statistics report. Again, if you have insomnia, read that report.
That's why we have
So,
you, Will. You read it. And then you get
yes,
to tell us.
that's why there's usually a bruise right here on my forehead when I fall asleep and bang my head on my desk. So you want to read this one off to us, brother?
Yeah. In January, the number of people employed part time for economic reasons at 4.4 million changed little. These individuals who would have preferred full time employment were working part time because their hours had been reduced or they were unable, keyword there, to find full time jobs. And that's from the jobs report.
Yes, that is. So it was stable in this report month to month.
Mhm.
Okay, and if you look up there at that chart from December of 23 to January 24, it's basically stable. That's in millions. So 4,211 to 4,422 in millions. So it's 4.4 to 4.4, 4.2 to 4.4 million. But if we look back, again, anything in economics, stock market, it's really easy to get caught up in the noise, month to month, day to day, second to second numbers in the stock market. When in doubt, zoom out.
Yeah.
So let's go from January of 23 to January 24. That's almost it's like a 7.5% increase in people who are working part time for economic reasons. So they would have preferred full time employment, but they're working, say, 2 part time jobs.
Yeah.
Or their hours got reduced, as we saw. They were getting that 45, 50, like you were talking about. And now they're down to 34 and they're like, I need something else. So they go pick up a part-time job on the weekends, maybe every other weekend. And
Yeah.
they juice that number up. But that counts as a job added too
Yeah.
when they
Oh,
pick up
thank
that
God.
part-time
Look
job.
at that.
Yes.
We're
So,
growing jobs over here. What's wrong with that?
and for your long-term trend, as you emphasized, they were unable to find full-time jobs. Unable.
Yeah.
That's the important part. They were trying, they were unable to find full-time jobs. That's
Yeah.
an important distinction over, there's 4 different jobs out here and I just haven't chosen yet.
Yeah.
Right.
What does
So,
Craig? What does Craig say over there in the motherland?
Karl Marx said, keep the working class poor and they will work harder. He must have been psychic. I think there's an otic at the end of that, psychotic.
Yeah. No,
But honestly, he wasn't wrong.
no, he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, it goes back to the Romans, bread and circuses, right? So, so to this point now, also from Bureau of Labor Statistics, we remember what average weekly hours did over this period of time. Now let's look at part-time employment. Dropped way down during COVID because if you had that extra job, or let's just say one spouse was working part-time while the other worked full-time, that went away during COVID, or there's enough stimmy checks, you just quit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But then look what the trend has been. It bounced back up, of course, in late 2020, but look what the overall trend has been since then. It's gone from 24.5 million there at the bottom post the shutdowns up to 27, almost 28 million. So nobody's making it on a part-time job unless they're making really good money, right? So, and we can see this trend is just going up and up and up. Okay. So the important part here to remember is that for the jobs report that we started talking about here, a part-time job counts as a job.
Yeah.
So if someone, let's say someone gets fired, laid off, quits a full-time job, that's one job destroyed. Now let's say they go pick up 2 part-time jobs to do that because they were unable to find a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
So one job was lost from the economy, 2 part-time jobs were taken. That's a net gain of 1 job.
All right.
Yeah.
I tell you, man, that's and to Brian's point here, Brian says many of our worst fears that we have been talking about for a while are on the verge of becoming reality. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the general population will be totally shocked and unprepared for it. And that's why we do this show. Use this show to prepare and let people that you love know what's coming down the pike.
Yep. And you hit the nail on the head going back to Dr. Fuller's point about criminality is when they're shocked, they're going to do shocking things. Right? Because they're not going to see this coming. And if somebody tries to talk to them about information like this, whether it's from us or from other sources, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? Everything's fine. I got 45 hours last week. Right? So they're not going to they're not going to prepare. It's almost like there's a pattern in society, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's a pattern, all right.
Yeah, there sure is. So, all right. Next one there, brother. All right. So this is from Hedgeye. Full disclosure, I subscribe to them. Great macro stuff. So this is the one that's coming here. Okay, so this is U.S. fiscal deficit is forecast to be 1.7 trillion in 2023. That's fiscal year 23. So that goes until October of 24. The deficit is projected by the CBO to grow every year over the coming decade, exceeding 2.5 trillion annually in 8 years. So when we look at the 2032, we break the $2.5 trillion marker. Okay. The important thing here is the trend, right? And we look at those gray bars, those are actual numbers for the deficits. And look at those red bars. So basically by that, and this is their projection now. This is based on known spending on things like Social Security, Medicare. As the boomers get older, I mean, there's still some boomers working, right? But as they continue to draw on these programs, that's going to create deficits. So if we look at this big picture, 2033 there, the far right, $2.6 trillion deficit. The only things that rival that are the COVID spending. And this chart goes back to 2000. So think about those heady days of the GFC when we had a $700 billion stimmy program, right? Oh, if only, right?
Yeah. $2.6 trillion deficit spending. That's the key word, deficit.
Yes.
It's not just spending. It's way above and beyond what anything the government has taken in, and that's not going anywhere.
Right.
So if you don't think that they're going to have to herald in the age of CBDC, I think you're mistaken.
Yep. And there's even another angle to this with the CBO. If we go to the next slide there, brother.
Okay.
So this is the national debt. This is the CBO's projection for the national debt. So this isn't rightwing.com, leftwing.com. This is the projection for the national debt. We're looking at 60 trillion by 2034.
Now I feel better.
Yeah, I knew you would. That's why I put this in there. But here's an important thing to remember. Look at the bottom here, guys. CBO projections do not account for any negative events of the world.
No, that's exactly
no recessions, right. No wars, no pandemics, no trade wars, nothing. This is just based on projected economic growth, therefore increase in taxes, the tax rates staying where they are, and known spending, along with cost of living increases for government employees, things like that. This doesn't account for anything bad happening between now and 2034. That's 10 years away. You think might have a recession somewhere in there, might have a war, might have something, right? So this is the rosy projection.
Yeah. I think Will Parker has an excellent point. It's as if they're trying to spend us into digital currency.
Yeah.
What about Dr. Fuller's comment, Will?
It's impressive how fast things have plummeted and become the new normal, riots, flash looting mobs, out of control homelessness, rampant and unchecked criminality. Our big cities are living with this now. It would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Now it's not even newsworthy. It's bad now. It's going to get worse. You know, I think the most, if you can bring his comment back up.
Yeah.
The one that I think really strikes me in his comment here, it would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Now it's not even newsworthy. Remember when the first ambush attacks were happening on law enforcement officers?
Mm-hmm.
And it would happen wherever. And it would be, I mean, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, everybody would stop their coverage and cover that. Now it's on page 7 of some newspaper that nobody reads, and nobody even talks about it. I mean, how many people know about the African migrants in the Netherlands at The Hague driving a stolen, I believe it was an ambulance, through the front doors of some building while they were rioting over there?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I couldn't find it anywhere on mainstream news. I ran across it on Twitter. It's nowhere else. It's become normal.
Well, I don't know if it's that or just doesn't jive with the agenda. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Case in point, I mean, well, I won't go into that, but I'll go back to one thing. I employed some African migrants that had came over here legally from Burundi. Mm-hmm. And we gave them a job and all this kind of stuff. And the church community like donated them a car. We gave them a car and gave them clothes and all this stuff. And finally one day they're like, hey, I can't work here anymore. I'm like, wow, we just gave you a raise. Everything's going great. You're finally catching on to, how we do our structural support systems and stuff. Like, I can make more money at home. I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, if I don't have a job, I get this check over here and people keep giving me free stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. So that was his lesson. Welcome to America.
It's the American way.
It was better for him to sit on his ass than be gainfully employed. Meanwhile, you and I are having to go out there every day and work our little fingers to the bone.
Yep. And what's Ted say there?
Let's see. Ted says MMT Madness 1.
Modern monetary theory, which is neither modern nor a theory. We know what's going to happen. And to Dr. Fuller's point earlier, we can see what's coming. And that's why this is valuable information for self-defense folks.
Well, Tony says, and I haven't seen this, I'll have to look at that article, Newsweek. Medvedev claims Moscow will use nukes against the U.S. if Ukraine wins. I definitely have to read that. My cousin Roman is on. Roman says, I agree with Will Parker. Roman, not only do you agree with Will Parker, but so do I, and probably Will as well. What does Kyle say?
It says he thought the new normal would be social distancing and wearing masks for the next 10 years. No, but it served its purpose.
Yes, it did. Societal control. To Ted's point, modern monetary theory is you can do whatever you want, print all the money you want and put it into the system. You just take it out with taxes. But I think we're taxed to death. I mean, our forefathers would be shooting by now. And I don't mean to be, I'm not, this is hyperbole. Look at what they were willing to go to war with the most powerful country in the world at the time over. Look at that. And then look at your tax bracket and tell me what the difference is.
Yep. In fact, I just sent you I can't remember what YouTube calls them, a short. I just sent you that to you and Dr. Fuller this morning, a guy going off about taxes and it's spot on. I'll track it down. I'll throw it up on the Coin members page.
Okay, please do.
It's he's spot on. It's not going to be a news flash to anybody, but it's good for perspective. He's talking about how he's spending, his house is paid off and he still has to pay taxes on it with money he's already been taxed on.
I know.
Yeah, it's
criminal.
that. Yeah, it's that that line of thinking, which is dead on. So, so the next chart, I'm warning you guys right now. The next chart is super busy. We'll get through it, but to kind of set that up, let's talk about the U.S. budget and how it works with different economic scenarios. So it makes sense that the U.S. budget deficit would go up during times of high employment, right? Because there's decreased tax revenues. People aren't making as much money. They aren't spending as much money. Unemployment benefits are being paid out. And they use deficit spending to stimulate the economy, as we've seen numerous times over our lives, right?
Right.
It also makes sense that the opposite would happen during a thriving economy with low unemployment, which we have now, and supposedly a thriving economy, this should result in budget surpluses or at worst small deficits, right?
Right.
And the worst thing you can ever hear in economics is this time is different. That's also just a way of lying. Okay. Well, this time, Rich, Brother Rich, and all the brothers and sisters out there, this time is different. If we go to the next chart, this is going to be a busy one, guys. So bear with me on this one. Okay. So this is unemployment rate, which is your bottom number there, your x-axis, and your deficit as a percentage of GDP is your vertical axis. Okay. Your zero line, you'll notice for your surplus or deficit as GDP is above center there, just for illustrative purposes. Okay. So as we move down, it's a deficit. It's deficit spending by the government. As we go up, there's surpluses.
Okay.
Okay. So let's look at the first red circle here to the right. Okay. So we had high unemployment, 8 to 10% inside that red circle, right? And we had deficit spending as a percentage of GDP from 2009, which was 10% deficit as a percentage of GDP, to a low in 2012 of about 6.5%.
But is all that just fallout from the GFC?
It is, and that's why that happened. But so you can make an argument there for that, right? We can also make the argument they should have just let things take their natural course of action, and we would be in better shape now for the pain then. But that's a political argument. This is what happened, right? So we're looking at high unemployment and deficit spending. Those things go together, right? This is, I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the system we have, right?
Peanut butter and jelly, brother.
Right. Now, look at the other red circle, kind of the oblong one at the bottom for 2020 and 2021. Well, relatively high-ish unemployment. Now, 2020 is a little skewed because, things picked back up. 21, quite high unemployment and a lot of deficit spending. We know why. It was the virus and the stimmy checks and all that.
Right.
We know that, right? But now the economy's good, right? That's all these reports, right?
That's what I'm told.
Yep. That's what we're told. And if you're living something different, then it's just you, or you need to try harder, or what have you, right? So the red boxes there, 22 and 23. Look at the unemployment rate, Rich. 3.5%, 4%.
Right.
Right.
Now
but look at the deficit spending. It's almost as much as 2012 was.
I know.
Okay. Now, so that is a backdrop, right?
Okay.
Look at the projections over on the left in the yellow circle for 2024 through 2033. They're projecting, this is the CBO projection for unemployment. 2.5% is what they're at.
Year after year, year
after year. But look at this, look at the deficit. It's still a deficit. Going all the way in 2032 and 2033, an average of 10% those 2 years. Why? If unemployment's that low, why is deficit spending so high? The reason why is the planned spending that they know is coming for Social Security and Medicare for boomers.
Yeah. Not just that. In 2033, your old pal Rich Brown will be drawing Social Security. You know what I mean?
I will be too, right about that time.
Yeah.
And this is where so where's that money going to come from? They're going to have to print it. And let's remember, this assumes nothing else bad happens in the world. So this is the best case scenario.
Thank you to the 24 folks watching us live. I really appreciate you guys being on this morning. And Dr. Fuller says, good Lord, we need to change the show's name to Reasons to Day Drink with Rich and Will.
Yep.
Which is interesting because Dr. Fuller does not drink. Fun fact there.
We can change that. Give us a little while here. Okay.
What does Sarah say?
We need just one show with this caption. Well, I see that as a challenge, brother. Yeah. That's what I said. That's how I took that. You know?
Yeah. And Will says, and Congress robbed security. Yes.
Yep. Matter of fact, my daughter is kind of gotten into economics and stuff, and we were actually just having a discussion about how there is no Social Security fund that has been replaced by U.S. Treasury bonds. That they'll make the argument that all that money will get repaid. Well, it's going to get repaid when they print the money to pay them off.
Yeah.
So, but this is what's coming. This is what's cooked in the books right now. at this point. Now, could something jarring happen in the world? Yes. But if you, again, no politician is going to touch this because you want to make sure you don't get elected or reelected right now. Mess with those two programs, Social Security and Medicare, as the boomers are really hitting their stride and hitting those programs. No, not happening.
Yeah. Same thing. There's a lot of veterans from the GWAT out there that if you just start cutting veteran spending, you tell them they can't get their PTSD medication or their knee replacement. It's going to be bad. You know what's interesting about this? Speaking of veterans causes, during Reconstruction, after the Civil War, 20% of Mississippi's state budget, just one state, 20% of their state budget went for fake limbs for guys that had their limbs sawed off during the Civil War. Little fun fact there. Do with it what you will, but I mean, my point is, if you told those veterans, you don't get a new leg, you don't get a new arm, tell that to the guys that fought in the GWAT and see what would happen. So, this is third rail politics right here.
It is. Yep. And there's just no. I mean, this isn't the rosiest scenario. I'm sure there's some rosier scenarios out there, but this is the base case, and this is from the CBO. I mean, they pretty much run it down the middle. I'll give them credit for that.
Congressional Budget Office, right?
Yep, correct. Yes, absolutely. They don't play games with stuff. I'll give them that. All right. So now we're going to do a little headline dump here with a little discussion on some of them here. So we had CPI came in hot over what was expected, and it was even worse if you dig into the numbers, which I won't belabor. But then PPI came in. That's Producer Price Index. This is the inflation that businesses are paying their suppliers. The PPI leads CPI because the businesses pay the price increases or decreases, and that gets passed on to the consumer. So PPI is a leading indicator. It's a good way to look forward. So wholesale prices post their biggest increase in 5 months, according to the PPI. The inflation fight is not over. So if we dig into this, we can see that the bottom here, core wholesale prices, which exclude food and energy, rose by an even sharper 0.6% in January. Now, 0.6 times 12 is 7.2% PPI annualized, inflation, annualized. So if that's 7.2%, now consumers are getting squeezed. So producers, businesses are eating some of this, to be fair. But they're not going to eat all of it. They can't. All right. No. So this is also the reverse. It used to be the reason they came up with core was to make the inflation numbers, whichever variety they were, look lower because food and energy are volatile. Well, now it's working against them. The core is actually higher than the headline number. Headline number was 0.3%, which is 3.6% annualized. So, but bear in mind, their forecast was for 0.1%. So you can make the argument, well, it's triple. Well, it is. So this is, in other words, the fight with inflation is not over by any stretch of the imagination. This is going to keep J-Dog, keep those rates higher for longer. And the markets desperately want lower rates. And they want it just so money will flow into the markets and Wall Street will make money. That's all there is to it. They don't care. They don't care if the economy crashes.
Right.
As long as it creates easy money, they're all over it. And they donate a lot of money to politicians.
Say it ain't so, brother.
Don't tell anybody.
We got some great comments I want to take on here. Dr. Fuller says, good point, Rich, but everyone gets old. Less than 8% of our entire population served. Easier for politicians to screw VA benefits and Social Security. And I will, to agree with Dr. Fuller, I will remind everyone of the Ryan-Murray Bipartisan Budget Act. I'm still pissed off about it. And this occurred, I believe, under Obama. Paul Ryan at the time was Speaker of the House, I believe, and him and a Democrat, Murray, put this budget together. And it was a 1% reduction on veterans benefits over year after year after year. And I mean, I'm still like fight on sight. If I see Paul Ryan at a conference, I'm gonna punch him in the face and go to jail because and the fact that you're willing to steal to pay for the trillion spent in Iraq. Here's how their plan was to pay for it by taking 1% away from the guys and gals that fought that war to pay off the war. I'm like, that has never been done as far as I know. It's just absolutely disgusting. It was overturned, thank God. But it's just one of those things, man, that they will try to do it because, and here's the problem. I don't mind taking a haircut if I have to, as long as the politicians are going to take that 1% reduction with me. If we're doing it together in lockstep, I got no problem with that. But if you're just going to steal from me and keep your pay the same, that's how you get a revolution.
I'll tell you, I'll make a proposal right now that I will stand by.
Tell me.
I will give up all my Social Security and all my Medicare if I can trade stocks the same way the politicians do.
Oh,
I'll give it all up. I will sign that piece of paper right now. All I want is to be able to attend these same congressional hearings they go to and get this insider information so I can go up 65% in my accounts like Nancy Pelosi did last year.
Martha Stewart went to jail for just 1/10 of a stock trade that Nancy Pelosi does on a day in, day out.
Yeah. An intern at JP Morgan would do prison time for doing what the politicians do.
Correct. Let's get to Derek's point because I love Derek's point. If you could read it.
It is awesome. Let's go back to Sarah's point real quick because I want to point out one thing there. She says, I find it hard to believe Social Security will be there for Gen X. A couple points there. First is I believe it will be actually. Now, and I believe in 2032, I think, they can only pay out 80% of the promised benefits. So
what about means testing? Talk about that, Will.
Bingo. That's where we're going. We're at spot on, brother. So the means test and the way they're means testing it has been proposed once under Timothy Geithner, who was Treasury Secretary for Obama, and Mitt Romney also threw it out there. If you had, I believe it was tax deferred accounts greater than a certain dollar amount, then you didn't get any Social Security until your balances in those accounts went below that threshold. And Romney proposed the same thing as the Republican, I believe, candidate at the time. Maybe he was a senator. I can't really recall. It was different dollar amounts. It was lower for Geithner than Romney, but it was that was their solution for that. And the other thing I'd like to throw out there, and this would be worth digging into as we get closer to the election, is it's when the program was originally designed, it wasn't supposed to be retirement. The full name is Supplemental Social Security. And it was supposed to supplement what a person saved. The politicians have morphed that into a retirement program where you should just be able to live off Social Security is the expectation of a lot of people. And then that changes the perspective on the program, right? So if, let's just say a person is supposed to get, making up numbers here, $1,000 a month, but that's supplementing what they've saved. Well, if your supplement goes from 1,000 to 900, that's livable. But if that's all a person has, that's catastrophic.
Right.
And so the politicians have made that program untouchable and therefore made that program so valuable that it has to happen. So it's an interesting history of Social Security there. And this has been known, I mean, demographics, right? How long does it take to make an 18-year-old?
Exactly.
Right? We've known this problem. I mean, I remember hearing about this problem coming when I was in my teens.
Yeah.
Right? 40 years ago. So this goes to the inadequacy of government planning. We've known this is coming forever. They could have tweaked the program 30, 40 years ago, and this never would have been an issue.
Yeah.
So
now on to Derek's big problem here.
All right. So what's Derek say there?
He says it's obvious the economy is on track for a crash. So what is the best personal investment strategy to prepare for
it? Bang and bourbon.
There we go.
There you go. All right. So here's the thing. So not financial advice. Okay. And it's different for everybody. We don't know when the crash will happen. I don't have that crystal ball. I don't think anybody does. I agree. Right now, the stock market is poised to go down, but it needs a catalyst. What's that catalyst? Don't know. Does China invade Taiwan? Do the Houthis finally hit a U.S. flagged oil tanker and something lights off over there? Does Israel do something? Who knows, right? We don't know when that's going to happen. So what's the best plan? That's I don't know. This is different for everybody. For me, as a more active trader, okay, TRADER for the record, I don't mind playing this bubble, being in this, because I'm in there multiple times a day watching what's happening. Um, by the same token, if you say, if a person were to say buy a 10-year US Treasury right now, you're going to get paid back. They're going to print the money to pay you back, right? It's going to make 5%. And you can sell it whenever you want. The only thing to watch out for is if you buy US Treasuries in a taxable account, US Treasuries get taxed as personal income, not as capital gains. So that can watch your taxes on that. That can make a huge difference on how beneficial that is. There's nothing wrong with precious metals. I keep 10% of my portfolio in precious metals. There's also nothing wrong if a person thinks it's imminent. There's nothing wrong with just sitting in a money market right now, especially in a tax deferred account. Money markets are making 4.5%.
Yeah.
I mean, sit back, do nothing, zero risk, right? So it's a really hard question to answer, Derek. The argument can be made, pay down debt, which is never a bad thing in my opinion. I say that kind of hypocritically because I will never pay my house off because it's financed very low and I can make more money doing other things, right? I mean, if you think about a person who refinanced, say during COVID at 2.75%, well, like we talked about, they go put that in a money market and make more money than that right now. So why would a person pay off that mortgage?
Can I plug a book?
There's a ton of angles.
I got to plug a book, man. The Psychology of Money. Please read
Yes.
this book, The Psychology of Money. And I tell people this all the time. What is your relationship to money? If your relationship to money is, I work so that I can grow more money, and that's fine. Or your relationship to money is, in my case, and the one I think favored by the author, is that money provides you with freedom. Okay. Yes. Money is a means to be able to do whatever you want to do. But I encourage people to read that book, wrap your head around what is your relationship to money. And that's going to answer some of the questions of what do I do?
Yes. As a matter of fact, after you brought that book up a while back, I'm listening to the audiobook right now. So thank you.
Yeah. Mark says history tells us that recessions don't solve anything. They will print money and create jobs to solve problems. Johnny King says a cyber attack on the grid would make a great catalyst.
Yes,
Brian says, yes, it would. Brian says, my former Marine son made 2 government-funded trips to Iraq in 2004, 2007. He would have to be sedated if he heard this discussion. I'm with you, brother.
So let me see here. Whose comment was it? I was just looking at. Golly.
So many great comments coming in.
There are. Oh, that's what happened. Some more came in here. Cyber attack on the grid by Johnny King there. I'm glad he brought that up because we're seeing a lot of stuff. I just saw an article yesterday. I think it was the head of the FBI talking about how China is embedded in our infrastructure, in the cyber stuff of our infrastructure. They know they're in there.
Yeah, their malware is all over the place. But what's it doing?
So that's the underlying threat. We're going to go do what we want with Taiwan. Y'all just mind your own business over there.
Yeah, that's where attacks happen on our government infrastructure every day.
Yes, and thousands of times a day. I believe J.P. Morgan, huge bank, right? They came out. They're getting cyber attacked like thousands of times a day.
Yeah.
Wow. All of a sudden you can't access your money, or it just poof, everything goes blank. Yeah. Now I'll throw this out there, guys. Maybe I should put my tinfoil hat on for this. I do paper statements every month. I don't do the electronically delivered statements. I'll pay the $2 a month or whatever it was. Then every month I hang on to that. That can be made up as well, right? I've got Corel Draw and Photoshop. I could make a statement, say whatever, but I can also show a history of here was the account over the last year. Yeah. So I'm just throwing that out there. Old school paper will at least give you a leg to stand on.
I want to go to Matt Sims' comment because I really find this fascinating.
Okay.
What's if you could read that, Will?
It says, if Will was king for a day, what are the top 3 things you do to fix the economy? That's a great question.
You could almost do a
Let's
show
see.
on that, right?
Yeah. How about we do that?
I like that.
How about we punt on that? Because I don't want to give you, I want to give you a well thought out answer on that, Matt.
Yeah.
So
What do you think next?
we're on for next Monday. Let's
Yeah.
do it then.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have a little time pressure, I'll push it off, or I'll
Uh,
forget, to be quite honest.
yeah.
Let's do that next Monday.
I like that, Matt. Thank you for
Yeah.
throwing that out there.
Yeah.
That's a
Thank you, sir.
beautiful question.
Yep. Um,
Ted says, "Climate, not China, is the threat." Of course, insert sarcasm. And
oh,
I've got a slide coming up just about that.
yeah, Ted, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's wow. That's it. Thanks for bringing us back to reality, there, brother. Much appreciated. So, all right. So,
Okay.
what do you got here, brother?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna slide into this to talk about civilization and decay. I told you this is we're taking a break from Will's economic news and events just to kind of refresh everybody's memory here. The 25th United States Secretary of Health and Human Services. You would imagine that this guy would be some sort of physician, clinician. You would be wrong, sir. The 25th United States Secretary of Health and Human Services is a lawyer and politician. He was Attorney General for California. He was also a member of the United States House of Representatives representing downtown Los Angeles. That's right, folks. Skid Row in Congress from 1993 to 2017. 24 years, and we saw what he did to downtown Los Angeles. Just Google it for yourself, downtown Los Angeles. You'll see what a great job he did with health and human services. He's been a member of the Democratic Party and was the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus for 4 years. I feel better already. Of course, this is his assistant secretary for Health and Human Services. We all know her as Rachel Levine. Now, she, however, is a doctor, a professor of pediatrics and psychiatry. Let that sink in for just a second. A transgender.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
I know. Transgender person is a professor of psychiatry at Penn. Levine was named one of USA Today's Women of the Year in 2022, which recognizes women who made a significant impact on society. Civilization and decay, folks. This is the same stuff that they were caught up with in Rome right as the fall. So, what is our health and human services care about? Quote, climate change is having a disproportionate effect on the physical and mental health of Black communities, Levine said. A Black History Month message, quote, Black Americans are more likely than white Americans to live in areas and housing that increases their susceptibility to climate-related health issues. So before we get into this video, how many people died from climate change in 2023, according to NOAA? It was deadly. 492 direct or indirect fatalities, the 8th most disaster-related fatalities for the contiguous U.S. since 1980. 492. That's about the same number of people that die falling off of a 3-foot ladder. I mean, this is minuscule numbers. Whereas this is going on just one street in just one city of America, Kensington Avenue, Philadelphia. And they're doing jack squat about it. Over 150 people die every day in the United States from overdoses related to synthetic opioids. That's almost 55,000 a year. And you're talking to me about climate change. But don't take it from your old pal, Rich Brown. I'm going to pull up Dr. Levine, and you can hear it from the horse's mouth. If you just give me 1 second, we're gonna take a look at that, because you might think it's hyperbole. It is not. I can assure you.
While you're getting this pulled up, you can go on YouTube and do a search for Kensington Avenue, and there are just heartbreaking videos.
It is. These are human beings, man. And yet this is what they're telling us is important. It's absolutely ridiculous. Here we go.
Hello, I'm Admiral Rachel Levine. This Black History Month, I'm pleased to partner with OMH in advancing better health through better understanding for Black communities. Climate change is having a disproportionate effect on the physical and mental health of Black communities. Black Americans are more likely than white Americans to live in areas and housing that increase their susceptibility to climate-related health issues. And 65% of Black Americans report feeling anxious about climate change's impact. Through our Office of Climate Change and Health Equity and the Office of Environmental Justice, we're working with providers and community leaders to identify innovative approaches that empower communities to address the health consequences linked to climate change. Visit hhs.gov for more information and tune in next Thursday to hear from another HHS leader on how you can contribute to advancing better health for Black communities.
Let me add this back to the stage here, folks. If
Yeah.
this kind of fentanyl, the opioid crisis knows no skin color.
Yes.
These
correct.
are Americans from all walks of life, all socioeconomic backgrounds, and they're dying at staggering numbers.
Yep.
And so this is just from Kensington Street, societal rot, literally and figuratively. These people are sick. They need help. And meanwhile, the folks that should be doing it, that are getting paid extraordinary amounts of money by this administration, are talking to you about climate change relative to just the Black community. And I mean, this is a problem. And it goes also to, Michael hit it on the head, the Office of Environmental Justice and Health Equity, Climate Equity, or whatever she said. It's just absolute lunacy.
It is.
And Jeff reminded us that Pennsylvania was Levine's state that she was in charge of for health and human services. And look at this. It is absolutely disgusting that nothing is being done about it. And you're going to talk to me about climate change.
Yeah. And so let's just say the climate change needs to be handled through health and human services. How about prioritizing it based on the number of victims?
Right.
At 492, how high should that be on the priority list compared to all these other things you've pointed out and other things we know? But yet that's where they spend their time talking.
Yeah. Well, like Will Parker says, look over there, nothing to see here.
Yeah.
And what do you think is going to happen to these tens of millions of folks that are here illegally? You think they might get involved in it too? I mean,
or
anyway.
have it coming across a porous border with a state actor helping make that happen? So,
yeah. And Gauss is totally not the America I used to know, man.
Right there with you, brother. Right there with you.
Will Parker says, I would bet this is news to the Black community that they're disproportionately affected by climate change. I bet they wouldn't give a crap. They'd probably be like, we have other problems in our community.
Yeah.
Than climate change. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep. But it also goes to show, where the priorities are for the administration. And this is I don't know if you want to call it the deep state, the bureaucracy, whatever term you like. But a different president coming in isn't going to make this stop.
No.
I don't care who that president is. Doesn't matter. It's not going to stop. It's got its own momentum now inside the administrative state, and it's going to sit there. It's going to do its thing. So,
well, just pay more. If you pay your carbon tax, Will, you won't have. So.
Yeah, I got a finger for him. It's right in there somewhere.
As a captain of a commercial airliner, you are one of the biggest polluters out there.
Damn Skippy. So, all right. So we're gonna do our headline dump here now. Loud budgeting is in, quiet luxury is out. Meet this TikToker who started this trend. Well, that particular article went into, people are just coming out and saying now, no, I'm not going to spend the money on that. And it's becoming the in thing to just admit, I don't have the money for that.
Right.
Well, that's not the symptom of a thriving economy, is it?
No.
So we can look at that on down here. Taco Bell and KFC are feeling the pressure from price-conscious consumers. Now, that said, fast food is ridiculously expensive. I eat more of it than I should with my traveling. But people are getting squeezed on this stuff, right? And this bottom one here goes to a retail sales report that came out. U.S. shoppers cut back in January. They fell a seasonally adjusted 0.8% in January. Now, bear in mind, that number is not adjusted for inflation. Wow. So if we believe the CPI number at 3.3% right now, if retail sales would have gone up 3.3%, that would have been a zero actual growth. So this is actually a decrease of 4.1%.
Right.
Okay. Very important when you look at these numbers, try to figure out or come on and ask, is that number adjusted for inflation? because if it isn't, then it's going to be even worse than whatever you're seeing. Even if it would have been a 4% increase, adjusted for inflation, that's 0.7%, right?
Mhm.
Well, this is even worse. And this is people being squeezed. They don't have the money. And these other idiots are worried about freaking climate change. So, on that happy note, on to the next one there, brother.
Mm-hmm. I like Tony's comment. It says, again,
Yeah.
our constitutional republic has become an administrative oligarchy.
Yep.
Woo,
And
totally.
we can put that back onto it's been going on for years, but Obama accelerated that tremendously.
100%.
Um,
Bush
and
didn't do us
Cass,
any favors
oh,
on that
he
either.
didn't know. I mean, Woodrow Wilson, I believe it was under Woodrow Wilson. There was a book, I believe it's called The Administrator, something like that. Talks about exactly what has happened here, where
Mhm.
you just nudge people certain directions was
Yeah.
the term they used. So this is another sign of a consumer being squeezed. Target, which is your higher end, higher end than Walmart, but not a Macy's or what have you. Higher end for us middle class folks, right?
Mhm.
Target creates its cheapest in-store brand as consumers are squeezed. There are these new inexpensive brands with prices for everyday basics starting at less than $1. You don't do that if people are out there spending money. Something to really keep an eye on is your dollar store, things like that. Their traffic is going up. People are being pushed down. A lot of Target shoppers are going to Walmart. Walmart shoppers are going to the dollar stores. So,
Yeah, and here in rural Tennessee, man, you can basically throw a softball from one Dollar General to the next. It's crazy.
it is. It's crazy. Let's see here. What we got on this. We got what's that top one there, brother?
Record high credit debt outpaces savings for nearly 1/3 of the country. Here's what you can do.
So this report says more than a third, 36% of U.S. adults owe more money in credit card debt than they have saved. It's a 12-year high, and it jumped in the last 2 years. In 2021 and 2022, respectively, it was 27 and 22% of people had more money in credit card debt than they have saved. It's now 36%.
So it's on track to be like 50% in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. And if prices keep going up and hours worked go down, throw a few layoffs in there, that number can go up real fast. And then now what? Well, now what? Now they use BNPL because there's no credit check for buy now, pay later.
Nope.
And Americans with low credit scores use buy now, pay later more often. Not a shocker there. What's that article say for us, everybody?
Financially fragile individuals, those who have a credit score under 620 or were declined for a credit application or fell delinquent on a loan in the past year, are more than 3 times as likely, as 300%, as other more financially stable individuals to use buy now, pay later multiple times a year. The New York Fed researchers wrote Wednesday in a Liberty Street Economics blog post.
Mm-hmm. Now, bear in mind, guys, BNPL, you get pre-approved somehow. Thankfully, I don't know how that works. Sorry, I just saw Tony's comment. That's
Isn't that
hilarious, brother. I saw a sign the other day, last Dollar General for the next quarter mile.
Told you.
Boy, you got inside my OODA loop on that one, brother. I completely forgot where I was going with that. Oh, yeah. Buy now, pay later at Walmart. So they use, I believe they use a firm there. I'm pretty sure on that. Somehow you get pre-approved. When you walk up to the register at Walmart, look, there's a thing where you just start scanning your stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a button you can click on the screen that says use a firm. That's buy now, pay later.
Oh, really? Okay.
And that's at the self-checkout. So people are using buy now, pay later to buy things at Walmart. They're using it to buy food.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Nothing
And
good comes from
I
that,
believe
man.
that's in the last number I saw, that's in 4,500 Walmarts around the country.
Wow.
And they're planning on rolling it out eventually to all the stores. That's not, I mean, buy now, pay later. There's no credit check. There's no income check. There's no nothing. They just approve you. And if buy now, pay later, if that isn't paid on time, the interest rates are astronomical, 35, 36% interest.
And the people that are doing
unreal.
that I don't think they know how to calculate interest, man, or they wouldn't be in the problem with their FICO score like they are. You know
Exactly. Yep. And sometimes bad things happen to good people and they end up in that situation, unfortunately. And unfortunately, once a person starts down that path, it's
Mhm.
really tough to get out. And I feel for the people who just legitimately bad things happen in life. That's what a social safety net's for. It's not supposed, as Rush Limbaugh said famously in his book, the safety net isn't supposed to be a hammock.
Correct.
So, unfortunately, that is a foreign concept to our population and our uh, government. So,
No.
what do we got here? Back to your point about the cyber stuff.
Yeah, man. Fulton County faces ransomware attack by financially motivated actors, but county elections still on track.
Hmm.
Don't worry about your election, pal.
Yep.
Exclusive. Biden officials confront limits of federal response and exercise preparing for 2024 election threats. So go ahead and prep in the battle space now. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Cyber attack on Chicago's Children's Hospital has shut down its system for a week. Boy.
And so add a little color to these here, guys. The article with the Biden official, they basically came out, and it was like higher ups, the FBI. I forget the other agencies there. And they basically went, yeah, "We got nothing.
Right.
Sorry." And the attack on the Children's Hospital in Chicago, I believe that's still ongoing. I'm not sure they have access to those records yet, but it got me thinking. Um, it may not be a terrible thing, especially if there's something uh, going on with a family member that's. In other words, it's not just a regular checkup. There's something there. There's a real health problem going on. It got me thinking. I'm going to be like, hey, can you print those off for me? Print those records off.
Yeah.
Because if the only way I know last couple times I've been to the doctor for checkups and taken, family members in, everything's on the iPad or the laptop, right?
Right.
Really say, hey, can you print that off for me? Or can you email it to me? It's my records. And then you've got a backup. So if there's some sort of a health crisis going on, an ongoing chronic health thing, have those records for yourself. And that's, a good bit of preparedness for that.
Yeah. Let's talk about this. Whoever is conducting this cyber attack on a children's hospital, that should be the death penalty. Because
Yep,
how
I
many
agree.
children are
Yep.
not, they're those little children, man, that need on the oncology ward,
Mhm.
and you are doing a cyber attack with those physicians and clinicians cannot get access to those children's records to give them treatment. Man, I tell you
Yep.
what, I'll push the button myself on those guys when they
Yep.
catch them.
Or rather than the death penalty, just give the parents half an hour.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love
So,
that.
yep.
What does Sarah say?
She says she got bombarded at the beginning of the month when her credit score increased. Her FICO had a slight bump, over 200, Vanguard over 200 points. Phone and email have been crazy. So, yeah, this is where, everything's out there now, right? So something good happens because she's behaved responsibly. Her credit score went up,
Mhm.
and you get essentially punished for it, right? Because somebody just sees opportunity there. And as a business person, hey, I get that, right?
Right.
But by the same token, shouldn't we have some privacy in the world? And so
Privacy is
good.
not guaranteed in the Constitution. I wish it was.
Yeah, no doubt, right? So, and this is something people have to constantly be on guard for. Is these things? I'm going to throw this out there. I got a call the other day, and it was an unknown number, but I was expecting a couple of calls from numbers that I might not have in contact. So normally, if I don't know the number, I don't answer it. And I answered, and I just said hello, and they said, "Is this Will?" Don't say yes,
Right.
because now they have a voice imprint of you saying yes.
Right.
So whenever someone asks me that, I always say, "Well, who's asking, please?"
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to come across as rude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say, "Who's asking, please?" Don't say the word yes.
Yeah. You know what I
And
say?
then,
And this is just me. I say, what can I do for you? Because it
yeah, there you go.
puts it back on them. I'm not, what can
Yeah.
I do for you? Because you ain't going to be able to do jack for me. You're trying to sell me something. I ain't interested. What can I
Yep.
do for you? Well,
Yep.
it's not what I could. No.
Yep. The other thing I've done is I'm in the process of doing some stuff around the house here, and I'm expecting calls from different suppliers or what have you. And if it's like an individual salesperson, not some big box place like a Home Depot or what have you, is I'll just tell them, text me right before you call.
Yeah.
Just text me and say I'll be calling within the next hour. Then I'm going to answer the phone. We're both going to save time going back and forth. Just text me first. And then plus I know which number it's coming from, and then I'll recognize it. So this one, go a little international here. What's going on in Britain there, brother?
Britain falls into recession with worst GDP performance that one's
right?
Weird.
Worst performance in 2023 in years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's CNN.
Yeah, what are you gonna do, right?
Okay, exactly. So
Anne's got 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. Germany 1 quarter of negative GDP growth. Deutsche Bank warns of potential U.S. property losses. Man.
Yep. Deutsche Bank lent a bunch of money to commercial real estate here in the States.
How's that working out?
Yeah. Well, so this is another leading indicator here, guys. Watch the banks. They see what's happening because they see the payments stop before it goes into full default, right? And they see people making their payments late. Watch what the banks are doing. Every bank that I have followed is increasing what they call their loan loss reserves. They're expecting loans to go non-performing, which means they're not paying their loan payment. Deutsche Bank's provisions for losses in U.S. commercial real estate, so they're putting money aside for these losses. They increased that by 4 times in the last quarter, 4x. They're not doing that because they expect the payments to get made. And there's a lot of examples of this. I believe it was in San Francisco, a building that sold in, I think it was 2018 for $350 million or something like that. It just sold now for like 60 something million. Office buildings are getting crushed because of the work from home. People won't go back. And these real estate, the commercial real estate, especially office buildings, are just getting absolutely crushed. And they're trying to figure out how to repurpose these buildings. The problem is, what do you do with the interior part of a floor of the building? Nobody wants to live in
migrants and give them credit cards.
Yeah. So, well, the problem, the whole inner part of that floor, nobody wants to live in an apartment without a window, right? So what do you do with that whole inner part? You can't, if you make the apartments too big, even at the reduced value, plus the cost of remodeling, now the rent's too high to make it marketable. So,
but to your point about trend lines, like we saw this coming, go back and watch, Arthur C. Clarke in the early 60s talking about cities are going to be a thing of the past at some point. Once communication gets to the point where, you can live anywhere. Why would anybody want to live in the city? I mean, this is something we've known was coming.
No, they want to live in the city, Rich. They want to. Otherwise, they're going to move by us. Otherwise, they're going to move out by us. So they want to stay in the city.
Hey,
so
there you go. Tennessee.
Okay? Yeah, exactly. Moose up front should have told you. So, and here, the bottom one here, Cisco to lay off thousands of employees. Earlier, we talked about, in the 70s, it was the blue collar layoffs. This one is a white collar job layoffs. Okay. That's where it's happening at. I found it humorous, not on a human level, but as an economics level. Google just laid off a whole bunch of employees and replaced them with AI. And the people who got laid off worked on AI.
Yeah.
So they worked themselves out of a job. Yep. I found a little irony in that one.
Yeah.
So, let's see here. We're going to hit some comments here.
I've got one more thing for you.
Okay. Go for it, brother.
I think this is based on the video you sent me this morning. So let me go ahead and get this thing pulled up here.
Okay.
It was a different video. I couldn't find the one that you sent me, but we'll just do this one.
Okay.
There we go.
Gratuitous.
It was gratuitous.
Ad hominem, gratuitous attacks.
Politically motivated. Gratuitous.
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 The report was gratuitous.
This seems like the height of interference. It's gratuitous.
Is gratuitous, superfluous statements about his memory.
Gratuitous and inappropriate criticisms of the president. Way too many gratuitous remarks. The gratuitous comments, they're saying it's gratuitous. We certainly agree that it's gratuitous. The gratuitous comments in the report are troubling.
You know, and I'll bring it personal to home here. My mother just passed away with dementia. I saw her go through every stage of it, and like it or not, like the 46th president of the United States or not, we can't have a commander in chief who's dementia addled. We just can't. I'm sorry. Is it time to invoke the 25th Amendment? Perhaps, but I will tell you, I see the same hallmarks in his deportment as I did in my mother when she was probably in the second or third stages of dementia. I mean, and it doesn't get any better from here. So to look in our face again, I go back to gaslighting from the beginning of the show. They just open the gaslighting. What are you talking about? You know, the hardest thing I have, Will, is when I prepare to sit down with President Biden, is because he's so sharp. Is being prepared for the probing questions that this man is going to ask me. Top of his game, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yep. Sorry to hear about your mother there, brother, as well. That's tough.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing. I see it on this guy.
Yep. So, Mark brings up a good point here. 15-minute zones. For those of you who haven't heard of that, it's somewhere in England. It's escaping me right now. They're setting these cities up so they're sectioned off, and if you leave your section, there's a fee. And they're saying within your section, you've got everything. You got a pharmacy, you got a grocery store, you got this, you got that. There's no reason to leave your section.
Right.
That's dystopian stuff,
bro.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah. What's Will Parker say there?
Nothing like people who hate you, only care about their own greed, who are crushing others' ability to accomplish their hopes, goals, and dreams. Soon folks are going to be done with it and start stacking the bags of blood and bones. William Hollenbeck says, good morning, gents. Been in and out. Hopefully I can catch a replay. These discussions are worth catching. Thank you, sir. Sarah says, sorry to hear about your mom, Rich. Yeah. It was hard to watch the decline, and it was happened faster than I thought. And my point of saying that is it went from her being forgetful to her dead in maybe 4 years. So I say that because if looking at President Biden's timeline, he'll never make it to a second term. There's just no way.
I'll argue he won't even be the nominee this year.
Yeah.
I really think it's going to be Gavin Newsom. I wouldn't put a lot of money on that, but I put a little bit on that. Yeah. And Newsom is scary because he's a
Luciferian.
He's a con. Yeah, he's a con artist. I mean, he's good. There's no two ways about it. You got to give the man his props. He's good.
His hair is actually better than yours, Will.
Okay, that was uncalled for.
Hey, coming from a guy that's got the world's best comb over. Hey, take it for what it's worth. Don says someone needs to be charged with elderly abuse, referencing Biden. Yeah, no doubt. What does Kyle say?
Kyle says, Rich, I remember your video dancing with your mom.
Yeah, it's tough. So to Don's point, I mean, this is abuse. There's no way in hell that man is in charge of anything, let alone, and when the report comes out and says it, he can't help himself with classified documents. Then he doesn't need to be commander in chief, man.
Yeah. Yep. So I can't remember. Are there any more slides on that one, brother?
Let's see here.
Maybe just that closing one.
Yeah.
What's Pat Summit, basketball coach? Great story. I haven't read her book yet on leadership. Grew up in a cabin with a dirt floor and became arguably the most successful basketball coach, especially for sure the most successful ladies basketball coach in history. What's she say there?
And she died of early onset dementia. And this is where my mother was treated at the Pathead Summit Clinic. Just strangely enough here. A lot of people are afraid to comment. I'm sorry. A lot of people are afraid of commitment because it means they'll have to say that's the best I can do. Wow.
And that one, I think that applies to a lot of things. I mean, why don't people commit to a dry fire routine and a practice routine like is laid out in the programs there in the training vault? Well, maybe they have to admit the best they can become is a B-level shooter in USPSA. And that doesn't stoke the ego, right? We all want to believe we could be the Grand Master like Mike Seeklander, even though I know I won't ever get there. Well, our egos like to believe that, right? maybe we don't commit more to fitness because we have to admit that's the best I can do. My mental side stops me from pushing my body that far. And we all have those limits, right?
Yeah.
You know what's really funny about her comment? It had nothing to do with anything like that. That she was actually referencing marriage.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So people are afraid of commitment because they have to admit this is the best partner I can get because of who I am. I thought that was, when I first read that comment, I thought, oh, that's really, it went right down the track you did. So I kind of set you up there, brother. Sorry about that. But she was actually referencing marriage.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Sarah said he was just here in Superior. Did you guys see his speech? I did. Yeah. Great Lakes Brewery. Not one sentence could be spoken. Awkward laugh in the audience. No one knew what to do. Yeah. It's just sad to watch it happen. And shame on those that, that are letting this guy do anyway. Jeff says, any word on the truckers refusing shipments to New York? No, but it does. I like it.
I have, and I've seen a number. It's anecdotal, but I've seen a number of videos pop up on Twitter of truckers themselves saying they're going to refuse those shipments. It's an interesting trend. This is also people rising up and going, okay, enough. That for them, they've had it. They're not going to deal with it. And it rolls both ways. The media loves to do those sorts of things, like when California said we're not going to do business with these 30 states because they don't align with our values. There's also now news articles coming out that California is being hurt by that. Because now other states that they will do business with, the companies in those states know they have pricing power.
Right.
And that's why there's one outdoor bathroom they're trying to build in San Francisco, and it's small. It's the size of, it's small. It's a 2-stall bathroom. And it's going to be like $1.3 million because of all the hoops they're making themselves jump through, and they can only use certain suppliers and blah, blah, blah. Right.
It's insane.
So,
why are the truckers not going to New York? Because of what they did to the 45th president. And then the governor of New York had to come out and say, oh, no, don't worry, other businesses and developers. We're not going to do this to you.
Right.
Now,
came
why
out
would she
openly said that?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. She came out openly. So basically she just said, well, this was political.
Exactly.
Right. That's just, the more I thought about that, the angrier I got. Just put the whole Trump angle aside. It's just a politically motivated attack. And I don't care which way that goes. If it's somebody on the right doing it, somebody on the left, it's just as bad.
Yeah.
This causes people like me to become even more cynical and have less faith in the system.
Again, this is whatever you want to say about the 45th president of the United States, and everybody's got their own opinion, but just let it set in for just a second that this is basically a victimless crime. It is. The money was borrowed. It was paid back on time with interest in accordance with the financial institute's payment scheme. So my point of saying that is, everybody does this. We do it at the restoration company that I help manage. We put it out there that, hey, look, do your own evaluation. Don't take my word for it. If you want to get your own engineer to look at what we've done before you write the check, please do that. This is just the way businesses work. And you're going to find this guy $353 million. Man, we're living in a banana republic is the only way I can think of that.
Yep. Bring it back to our talk earlier. I like Tony's comment. Of my example of commitment for people. It says a B level is much better than the vast percentage of the population. And I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind is
a C and D level will get it done. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely true. So it's something that, it's easy to get into the, I guess, echo chamber, I'll say, because I hang out with, when I go to the range, I hang out with guys who like to shoot, and we shoot a lot. And it's easy to get caught up on easy to forget where the average person is at in a lot of these things, whether it be financial literacy, understanding what's coming economically, shooting, first aid, whatever it is.
Communications, driving, lock defeat. I can go all day long with the skills that you need to have. So don't pigeonhole yourself. If you're, I'm working on shaving another point and I can get A class, really, but you have no water at home, but you have like 2 days worth of food in your pantry, then work on those things, man.
Or you carry 4 spare mags and no medical.
Right.
Right. So yeah, so there's a lot within that, and it's easy for all of us to go down those rabbit holes, right? I
Sure.
know for a long time I went down the shooting rabbit hole,
Mhm.
and then I went, hold on, if I shave a tenth off this draw, is it really going to make much difference if I don't have some way to, have medical knowledge, right?
Right.
So it's that, be at that, I don't know, I'll make it up here, say a C level, B level at everything
Mhm.
versus a grandmaster shooter and go, turn a what? A turn a kit? What is
Right.
that?
What's that?
Right? Yeah.
Is that like a French croissant?
Sort of, yeah. Yeah.
I guess we've been on here an hour and 40 minutes. Thank you to everyone that's watched us live and everybody that's watching the replay. Once again, if you're looking to improve your testosterone, I encourage you to check out On Violence and Varietals. If you want that 37-point increase, check out my book, therichbrown.com. Pick up a copy today. Let's see. Derek says, Greg Ellifer's advocates the 80% rule. If you are better than 80% of the people in something, then it's time to work on developing another skill. That is outstanding advice.
Yep.
Greg, of course, is an outstanding guy. Matter of fact, he recommends your old pal Rich Brown's book. Says it's one of the best memoirs he read in a long time. And actually gave me a review on Amazon too, and I didn't request it. So thanks, Greg.
Awesome. Yep. And to Derek's comment there, that 80% rule, I think that applies to, everything, right? You don't have to be in that top 1% in anything. That kind of, jack of all trades, master of none. Whether it's like as I'm sitting in my family room that's still torn apart, DIY, I still call contractors in for some stuff because there's some things like, yeah, could I do that? Yeah. However, it's not worth for the mistakes I'm going to make. I'm better off just having them do it. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's also goes back to, we have to admit when we aren't that great at something, and that's tough.
Yeah. And in that point, Don says, and he's so right. Training time isn't sexy. We tend to want to buy competency with the latest gadget. And the way I've always said that is you cannot buy skill. Mm-hmm. If your skill is at a certain level, that gadget may buy you just an edge on performance, right? Mm-hmm. But it will not buy you skill. Skill is the training, and you got to put it in.
For sure.
Well said, Don. Anything else for today's show, Will?
Just to add on to Don's thing, there is, to Michael Gentile says that's the entire golf industry. As a former avid golfer, boy, you are spot on with that.
He is, right.
To the competence part of that is, I love the saying, basically be brave enough to suck at something new.
Correct.
I love sucking at something because it gives me a challenge. It gives me something to go get better at. Yep. So but it's not always fun. It's an ego check. It's, but people, whether it's lifting, right? Somebody who's very strong, loves to lift, but maybe doesn't like to run. Well, that's, and somebody who's really good at pistol, not so good at rifle. Well, where do they practice? Pistol. Right.
Well, and to this, going back to stay on Don's point, just 1 second further, we're looking for unconscious competence. Mm-hmm. And you don't get that from a gadget. I'm sorry. You get that from training. And the Callaways are not going to give you unconscious competence. Right. They're not. You can spend a lot of money on them, and they're cool and sexy. But at the end of the day, man, it's the ability to swing that club. And there's a video out there I love. It's a guy, he's walking through the aisle in Walmart, and he picks up a little child's $5, nylon string guitar, and he tunes it up, and then he just lets it rip. So you give a high point in the hands of Mike Seeklander, and he's still going to kick your ass on the range.
Yep.
It's just the way it is because he put in the time and the effort to make it that way.
Exactly right.
Anything else?
Nope. That's all I got. How about you take us out, brother?
All right, guys and gals out there, Warrior Nation, remember the fight is coming. Be ready.